Welcome back to another episode of The Last Boy Scouts Survival and Bushcraft. Today, we're going to be talking about changing out your boot laces with 550 cord. So stick around, you're going to learn something. First thing that I want to talk about is 550 cord selection. There are different brands of 550 cord out there that you can purchase and utilize. Some are generic, like the type that they sell at the big box stores, or if you were to go to any good sportsman's place, they have different or variant brands of 550 cord, which are Mil-Spec or military grade, and will actually hold the full tensile strength of 550 pounds. You can also opt for something better. In one of our previous episodes, I showed a wrap that I did on the shoulder of an axe handle. Now on that axe handle, I utilized a special type of 550 cord made by the brand Titan. It is Titan brand Survivorcord. Now what's so great about that is within your nylon jacket that you have in your 550 cord are multiple strands, right? Now this is your run-of-the-mill 550 cord. This is actually a good Mil-Spec brand, but it only has the individual strands, 6 or 7 different strands of the fibers inside that hold it together. With the Titan Survivorcord, the different types of strands that you have within it will have jute cord for starting fires. It will have wire that you can utilize for binding, tying, strapping, or trapping. It will also have monofilament line, which is the same type of line that you utilize for fishing, along with a few other different types of strands as well, just like you would have in your 550 cord. So that would be one brand, or that would be one type of paracord or 550 cord that I would recommend you could switch out your boot laces with. I don't want to take all day talking. Let's get down to it. I'm sure you're probably wondering what I got all this extra crap on the table for. Well, each thing that I brought has a purpose, and we'll show those to you. Now, there's probably a bunch of different ways you can go about starting this, but the first thing that I would do after you select the type of cord that you want to use is pull out your boot string and line it out to the exact or approximate exact length of the boot string that you are planning on replacing. All right? So there we go. I've measured it out. I'm gonna take my handy dandy tool, find my spot, cut to the length that I want, and get rid of the extra that you don't need for right now. Next thing I'll do is, you should typically measure twice, cut once, but I measured once and I cut once, so let's see how it measured up. I'd say that's pretty darn close, all right? One thing I wanna point out is on these boot laces, once upon a time, it had some sort of a plastic seal at the end that kind of gripped and was bound into it to keep it nice and tight, so that way when lacing your boots, it would glide through the boot grommets or the lace holes with ease. When it comes apart and you lose that portion of it, as you can see, it starts to fray, which can make for trying to lace your boot pretty sucky, right? Now, once you have your new boot laces made out of 550 cord, cut to the length that you want, you can do a few things to fix the ends so that they will fit through your boot hole grommets. First thing is all this little portion here that's starting to fray out. You're gonna want to trim it. Now, one of the things that you can do, if you got these little extra frayed portions, you can come in with your multi-tools scissors and just cut some of those extra little frays off. I've seen enthusiasts and bootlace making professionals on YouTube cut it at an angle and do all this fancy schmancy crap. I ain't got time for that. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to just, as we've showed you before, fuse the end with a little bit of flame. Ta-da! Okay. Now, more often than not, when we do that, when we fuse the ends of the 550 cord, it will create a little bump, right? Now we can mash it with our fingers and do other things to where it will fit in there. Or we can do a couple more things to make this end aesthetically pleasing. Now, the first thing that I want to show you, the first method I want to show you is called the press and twist. Now, and that's basically making these ends trimmer and tighter, like when it had the plastic on your boot strings, like shown here, right? Like you got the plastic on here. Basically what we're trying to do is mimic something like that. And the press and twist is basically, rather than lighting the whole end on fire like you do when you fuse, you simply heat it up to where it's going to melt, and then you press and twist, and it's going to basically shrink into itself. And you may need to do this a few times. Be patient with it and get it to where you want it, you like it. Now, another method that I have seen on YouTube is you can get from any store that sells electrical wiring, you can get a piece of heat shrink tubing that will fit over the diameter, that will fit over your 550 cord just by a little bit. Cut it to the desired length. I would say about an inch, 3/4 of an inch or so. Whatever, yeah, it looks about an inch long or so, right? And then cut it to length, set it on there, and then the same press twist method that I just showed you, you actually do that with the heat shrink covering tubing. Heat it up, press it, twist it until the heat basically causes that tubing to shrink on it and shrivel, and it's nice and taut to where it will fit through your boot grommets. Let me show you one more. Taking your Gorilla brand duct tape, picking out a portionate size that you want. Cut that bad boy. And you can wrap it around once or twice, being sure to press in. Now, you don't want to go too thick on this, right? You see, if I were to use this full thing, it would be kind of thick and maybe a little hard to get through the grommets. All I'm going to do is just cut off that little extra, right? And like I said, you cut this to size, the desired size that you like or whatnot. And what did I do just apart from causing the end to have a little covering or to scrunch it down to fit through the grommet? Well, I did it a little too thick, but anyways, you get the point. What I did is I provided you an additional source of tinder that you have in case of an emergency, right? You may not necessarily need this here, or you can actually go through, lace your boots, and then put these on the end. But in an emergency, in wet conditions, or when you find yourself short of a good tinder source, a good dry tinder source, I'll use the times that we're living in, for example. We've got all this rain, we've got all this wet, we've got all this flooding. This crap right here, this Gorilla brand duct tape, is an excellent tinder source. Check this out. Now, there are some people in the law enforcement and military community that will lace their boots up to this portion, and then they will lace up their boot a couple grommets just to leave space in their boot right here to relieve pressure from when your foot presses up like this, especially when you're in boots all day. That can really alleviate a lot of that stress and that pressure that you feel build up when you're walking around, hiking around, or performing your duties. That about wraps it up for this episode. There are some pros and cons to utilizing paracord as a substitute for your boot strings or your boot laces. Some people say that the nylon exterior is a bit more slippery than opposed to traditional boot strings designed for your boots. I don't really notice the difference. I never have a real problem with it. I've been utilizing 550 cord in my hiking boots and my work boots for a very long time now, and I absolutely have no problem with them. I guess it's just a preference of the user. I simply recommend that you take advantage of this resource whenever you're out and about in the wilderness. It's just another tool in your toolbox to have as a backup in case things go sideways, especially if you substitute your 550 cord for Survivorcord, which has many, many different uses. Stay safe, stay vigilant. Knowledge is your weapon. Be prepared. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Last Boy Scouts. If you like what you see, hit that like button. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more from The Last Boy Scouts, Survival and Bushcraft.